Good afternoon, Campbell McCrary here from Amvest Capital in New York City. Welcome to the Amvest Capital Inc. live webinar with E2Gold. E2 trades on the venture as ETU, Elephant Tango, Utah. Do hope you'll enjoy today's program. It will be available in replay mode, and you can catch it if you don't want to wait for our email at amvestcapital.com/webinars. Feel free to chat in your questions in the question pane of GoToWebinar, or simply email them in and we'll ask the questions in real time. Amvest is a New York-based specialist investment management and corporate finance firm focused solely on the natural resource sector. Excuse me. Very important disclaimer. This call is most definitely for informational purposes only. Pleased to have with us not one, but two persons from E2, Eric and Ellie Owens, starting with Eric, Dr. Eric Owens, President and CEO, over 30 years of experience in the resource exploration industry, and was the founder and president of Alexandria Minerals, and discovered more than 3 million ounces of gold at a cost of less than $17 an ounce. And he's had prior positions at BHP and Newmont and Echo Bay and Intrepid. Then we have with us Ellie Owens, vice president from the company as well, and I believe a lawyer by background. So with that, if you want to get your presentation up, and we'll do a nice dive in, and then we'll open it up to Q&A. Please, everyone, send in your questions, and we'll try and get the gist of one of the newer companies out there. So quite brand new. And unmute yourself.
Okay, thank you. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I can see the
my screen is visible?
Both of you, sounds crystal clear.
Okay, very good, very good. Thank you, Campbell, for that introduction, and for to Amvest for having us be able to present our story today, as well as to all of you who are joining to hear us today. Now, we appreciate. I'm Eric Owens, President, CEO, and co-founder of the company. I'm joined here today by Ellie Owens as well, our Vice President and co-founder as well. Both of us will be presenting to tell you a little bit about E2Gold and why you should be interested in at least following us and hopefully investing in us. We have a good mixture of a strong management, strong experienced management and driven management. Less than just about a year ago, we were still just forming the company and acquiring our property package a little over a year ago. In less than 12 months, from January of last year until December of this year, we successfully completed our IPO, which actually, once we signed on, took about 3 months in the fall time, in a kind of a dismal market, or a coming dismal market anyway. But we managed to get started, get a lot of work done during the year to get to that point. What excites us about this property is it's a large property. It looks like Hemlo. For those of you who know Hemlo, it's a 24 million ounce gold deposit in the region, and it's relatively underexplored in an emerging gold mining region. These are the points we hope that you will also appreciate, and this is what excited me about the property initially when I started looking. In fact, it's a property I've known about for probably 10 years. I was busy in a previous previous business venture, and this came available in 2019 for me to start looking at it seriously, and we acquired the property in 2020. Briefly, the Hawkins Gold Project, located in north central Ontario, is a large property package, 60 kilometers long from west to east, and you can see it located on this map here, located in an emerging gold mining district. We have a starter resource of about 328,000 ounces of gold, a little over 328,000 ounces of gold, all at surface, from 0 to 150 meters depth, 3.5 kilometers long, open below that depth and open along strike. So it's a good starting point for us on this property package, with a lot of work and a lot of area to cover in the future. It's got potential for size. It's a Hemlo lookalike, as we'll show you shortly. It has a lot of similarities to the Hemlo style of mineralization. And to that end, it was staked in the 1990s by Don McKinnon Sr. of Hemlo fame. A decade after, the most important point here, a decade after that Falcon Bridge drilled some 80 holes in the mid-1980s, which are the holes that we use, the drill core we use to calculate this resource estimate. So the real bonus for, as I see this, is that there is like 40 years that any serious work has been done on this property. So there's room for discovery and growth using modern geologic thought and modern technologies that haven't been used here to now. And that represents the real benefits or value added activities to us and E2Gold shareholders.
So just a little bit about the share structure before we go into more of the details of the geology of Hawkins. We have about 46.5 million shares outstanding. They're very tightly held. The breakdown of the share ownership is about 23% insiders, with 19% of that being the Owens family ourselves. And funds, we're very excited about this. Funds hold about 13%. So a lot of them came in with the IPO. We have the lead order from Palisades Capital there, RAV Capital, Northern Precious Metals, and AIS Gold Corp or Gold Fund out of Connecticut. So we're very proud of the fund investment into E2Gold. We also have high net worth individuals holding almost 20%. So again, tightly held share structure there.
Just a little bit about management here. Myself, of course, as a co-founder, I'm a geologist by experience and education. I have run another company prior to this one and took it public as well. That's Alexandria Minerals. As Campbell noted, we discovered and or acquired 3 million ounces of gold for a total cost of $17 an ounce for the company. We sold some of that off to Agnico Eagle back in 2014, I think it was. In any case, I've been involved with the discovery of some 7 million ounces of gold over the years throughout the Western Hemisphere. And then Ellie Owens, of course, our vice president and co-founder. I'll let Ellie, you can talk a little bit about yourself.
Thanks. So I'm also a geologist by background and training, and I'm a lawyer as well. I started out in the mining industry working at a variety of exploration sites, mining sites, engineering sites across Canada. And then I went back to law school and came out of that practicing securities litigation here on Bay Street in Toronto, and pivoted last year to join Eric. So it's a very broad background that I bring, but all of those experiences have meshed really well into my role with E2Gold, and it's generated a lot of fun. It's been a really fun year since we founded last year. A little bit more about some of the other management team who aren't here. Natalie Pierre-Chuck-Renaud is our VP Exploration. We announced her about a month ago, but she's actually been with us since last August, running most of our field and exploration activities. And she's just fantastic. She's a fabulous geologist, really enthusiastic. She's worked at a number of different exploration sites, including Fruta del Norte and the Coffee Gold deposits. But on top of that, she's just such a good communicator and a really strong leader for all of our junior geologists. So she's been a great addition to our team.
Thank you, Ellie. Of course, Eric Martin, our CFO, rounds out management. He's a great CFO and accountant, as well as a great strategist in terms of business decisions. So it's good to have him on board. We have a very strong board of directors, emphasis on the technical side, geology side, but they've been involved in big and little companies on Bay Street here in Toronto for a number of decades. I've known all of them for a great length of time. There's more of that on our website, so we'll just kind of scoot along here. Ellie?
So a little bit more about why we're so excited about Hawkins. This is a bit of a layout for you about where Hawkins lies regionally. You can see Hawkins in the star there. It falls along the northern limb of a very prominent geological trend, the Porcupine-Dester Fault. That's the western extent. You can see it's twinned by the southern limb of the Cadillac-Larder Lake Break, which many of you might know runs eastward into Quebec, into the Val-d'Or Gold Camp. So first of all, it's sitting along a very regional gold trend. and it's flanked by some very historical gold-producing gold camps. So in the west there, we've got Hemlo, and on the eastern edge, we have the Timmins and Kirkland Lake historical camps. But what's really important is that central zone there, where all the yellow dots lie, has really been overlooked until the past decade. So Hawkins, the resource that sits on it, was really from drilling. We updated it in September, but it was drilled about 35 years ago in the 1980s. Falconbridge drilled about 80 holes. But what that means is the resource really hasn't been re-looked at with new geologic models since this new emerging region of gold mine. So you can see the Sugar Zone mine to the west of Hawkins. You see Magino Gold Project, Island Gold Mine, many large mines that really came online or were rediscovered in the past 10 years. So that's really where a lot of what we're excited about for Hawkins lies, is that there hasn't been a lot of work done in the past 35 years. So we're excited to take another good geologic look at it.
Okay, a little too far there. Here we go. A little closer look at our project. As you can see from this geologic map, superimposed on the geologic map, we have bordered in red our project, 60 kilometers long from the east end to the west end. The long, narrow portion of this, which follows a major regional gold structure, which is called the Puscuta Lake Shear Zone, is the portion that we optioned from a private company a year ago, a little over a year ago. So we are been focused on this central area, this central 15-kilometer stretch here, which hosts the McKinnon Inferred Resource, which will be focusing most of our endeavors in the coming years, plus this wide bulge of claims here, which are claims we staked after optioning this off. Basically, our efforts are going to be in and around the McKinnon resource, which we expect to provide us with most of our work, over 90 to 90% of the work over the next couple of years, as we try to take a 328,000 ounce gold deposit that is an inferred resource that's sitting there, and try to see if it can be turned into a 1.5 million or 2 million ounce resource with room to grow beyond that. So that's going to be our effort, to try to grow this deposit over the coming effort. But as part of this effort, though, we will allot a certain amount of time, effort, and money to these more virgin areas to the west and to the east of that project or of that resource, as we try to establish drill targets in those areas where much less work has been conducted over the years. But we like this zone. We think the geological structures are complex and are great signatures for gold deposits. We also like this western area beyond the McKinnon resource because of its proximity to this big pink granitic rock over here, which is about 40 or 45 kilometers long, on which the Sugar Zone mine sits down on the southeast side, so in a similar sort of geological environment. So we have a couple of different types of geology that we're looking at. We're early days yet. We have the McKinnon Zone, which looks like Hemlo, and this drill core from the Falconbridge days shows you what that ore deposit that is the McKinnon Zone looks like. It's a silicified pyritic schist that is very similar looking to Hemlo. And plus we have this target area over to the west. So we have a broad amount of testing to go on this project. Now this is that central portion, that central 15 kilometers. Remember, that's only a quarter of the whole property package, but this is where most of the work has been done over since the 1930s. Yellow stars here are high-grade prospects, up to say 18 to 20 grams per ton in grab samples from Colbert de Broye, for instance. And over here to the west, that gold fields up to 40 grams per ton over meter in channel sampling. So these things haven't really seen a lot of work over the years. Have been surprisingly little. We've also identified in red here, this central location here, the McKinnon deposit or the McKinnon Zone, our inferred resource. That's 6.2 million tons, grading 1.65 grams per ton for 328 plus thousand ounces. We have our first drill hole located here. So we mentioned how aggressive and how quick we were to get turned public. Well, since we got public, We started trading on January 4th of this year. By February 4th, we had a drill rig on site. And by March 4th, or PDAC, we had our first results out. And that was this hole, MK21001, testing the middle of the resource. And we intersected, here's a cross section over to the right, we intersected 17 meters, grading 1.81 grams per ton. So we hit our target zone, and that included a narrower, higher grade zone of 1 meter grading 11.3 grams per ton. So there's good high grade material in there, which is consistent with what the Falcon Bridge drilling is telling us. So we're confident that our targeting methods are starting to work. We're gaining confidence in that all the time, because even though there was 80 drill holes to define this deposit, we don't know exactly where those drill holes are. We know where a few of them are with casing, but we're still figuring that out. But we're clearly in the right area. This is just a little bit more to kind of hone in on the Hemlo style of the mineralization. First of all, as you can see from the cross section over here, this is data from the Falcon Bridge days, and you can see this Falcon Bridge cross section here with some anomalous gold, 0.5 to 1.5 gram material surrounding a core area of around 10 gram material is in the core areas of these two holes. More importantly, it's shallow. These two holes, for instance, are only go down to about 125 meters. There's been very little drilling below that depth, so we're really wide open at a shallow depth, and this is the opportunity for us. And you can see again the drill core down here, a very silicified or silicious rock with quartz pyrite and sericite, which is very similar to the Hemlo style of mineralization. Remember that it was about 80 holes into Hemlo before they hit their big discovery hole there. So this is an opportunity for E2Gold and shareholders. This is a little bit more detailed look at the resource, the surface trace of the resource, a map view of the resource shown in tan or faint orange, depending on your color scheme of your eyeballs. The three areas where we're currently focused with our current drill program are shown here in the orange ovals, basically. We completed our first 5 drill holes around a higher grade zone in the Falcon Bridge drilling. And the assays are pending for 4 of those holes. We expect to see new assay results released in the next week or so. So we'll be looking forward to getting those out. You can see the location of our first hole here, MK21001. We did complete 1 drill hole over in the Taylor area. An assay is pending for that one. We had to cancel hole number 7 there, and because weather was warming up at the time and we weren't sure we were going to be able to get the drill rig out. So we thought better of it. We moved over to the west side of the project and have now completed 6 more holes there. We have 2 remaining holes to complete. If we can squeeze more holes than that in, we have more planned. But the weather is starting to, spring thaw is coming. The weather's starting to warm, and that means that it gets very muddy and mucky with that activity. So we're probably going to have to take a drilling break here in the next couple of weeks.
So this is one of my favorite images. I just feel like it really shows the potential of the McKinnon resource in our near-term expansion of the resource. So as Eric just went over 2 of our relatively easy ways of targeting infill drilling and drilling at depth. This is the 3rd aspect of our drill targeting. It will be a long strike of the resource. So you can see the resource there in red. Eric, if you wouldn't mind pointing that on the map there. The resource, the McKinnon resource in red there, falls right along the contact between that magnetic low and the medium magnetic signal, which is the blue and the green there on the map. And you can see that trend really runs pretty nicely along westward and eastward. And it also falls along a lot of our high-grade prospects, which are there in red. So that's going to give us some real nice targeting for our drill program that we're currently undergoing and our drill programs in the summer to help us expand the resource that we already have.
Yes, so we have a number of targets to test. We have fill-in holes. We have chasing higher grade zones downward. We have chasing the zone along strike. We have other targets, other high grade targets which have never been tested. So we're very early days in this whole project. Even though we have a nice bit of resource there and bit of drilling there to give us a starting point to focus our exploration for the near term. We do have a big property that has seen very little work on it overall, and we've got a lot to do. So in this sort of diagram just sort of tells you where we're going for the rest of the year here. We've almost completed our first phase of drilling here. Actually, we'll be about 2/3 completed by the time we're done with our next couple of holes. So we won't have completed everything we wanted to do. We'll just fast forward that into the summertime drilling. But the April to June, the late April or May to June period is really going to have to be a period of planning and other activities for the summertime, because summertime we plan on ramping up with continued drilling beginning in late June or July through the fall time, as well as surface mapping and prospecting and trenching, other geophysical and geochemical activities, field activities to help guide us for future drill hole targeting, basically, and then hopefully as well leading into the planning for wintertime drilling beginning in November, December. So this is a big full program that we plan, but that's where we're going with this. To reiterate, we plan on seeing whether we can grow this deposit into something a lot bigger and get it to a point where we can sell it off to a major. That's the story. We're happy to entertain any questions, and we look forward to hearing from you.
Excellent, thank you. So you can send in your questions. Just use the question pane or the chat pane function of the control panel, and we'll answer your questions. But in the meantime, I have a few right here. Why does the NI43-101 report about the asset not entirely available to the public? Is that accurate?
Well, that's a interesting question. It's not something I thought about either. It's actually in our prospectus. So when you do an IPO with it these days, it gets placed in the prospectus itself, and that's where it's filed. We're happy to send a copy to anybody who would like one. We'll email one, but you can also go on CDAR, go to our prospectus, and you'll find it in there.
Okay, maybe put a one up anyway if you're allowed to. Not everyone knows that rule. Have you or the company you optioned the property from done the current resource estimate?
Sorry, can you say that again?
Have you or the company you optioned the property from done the current resource estimate?
Yes, it was done under our watch. There was a first one done in 2016, I believe, or 2017, 2016, and we redid it this year in the fall of 2020, updated it.
Okay, do you have all permits, and how is the situation with the First Nations?
Yeah, good. Yes, we have. The answer is yes. We have permits for the work we plan on doing, all the drilling that we want to do and whatever else we want to do at this time. And that's good for 2 years up until the middle of 2023, I believe it. No, 2022. Yeah. We got those in the fall of 2020, so 2022. And then we do have a pretty good relationship with the First Nations at this point in time.
Sure. What was the gold price used in the resource estimate?
I believe we used, boy, that has been a while since I thought about that. I believe we used 1600, somewhere around 16, I think it was 1640 or something like
that. All right. Tell us about your prospecting team.
We have some great geologists on the ground working on the drill rig right now. Of course, Natalie, our VP Exploration, is supervising them. We also have Natalie's husband, who's a geologist as well, who will be joining us in the summer. And his partner is a prospector. They've been around Robert Dillman's been around for a long time. So they will both be in place for the summertime for us. In addition, we have a group, a prospector with his team of 4 others, or as many as he can drum up, who do not only prospecting but line cutting, as well as many other things. They can supervise trenching if we need. In fact, this guy and his group were the first people I brought on last year, that Ellie and I brought on last year, to get our initial field program underway. So they were out there, and we were scrambling. We were trying to raise money, and enough money to pay for field crews, and we got somebody out there by early July, and then we got Natalie and her geological team out there in August. So the prospectors were the first ones on the ground at the time.
Any surface exposed gold bearing structures in the project area?
Yes, the McKinnon Zone itself does crop out and has been further exposed through trenching and channel sampling. So that's one of those. The prospects that the high grade prospects that we've shown on there on the maps all have surface exposure, and they've been subsequently, well, most of them were prospected in the 1930s and were either pits dug and sunk on them. In the case of one, the Shenango, we call it the Shenango shaft. It's a 60-foot shaft that actually, from which about 60 ounces of gold were extracted back in the 1930s. So that's another thing. There's some pits as well in the area. So in fact, there's quite a bit of surface pits and dumps and small shafts and so forth in the western end of that McKinnon resource. Although it's worth noting that the Shenango shaft, from which the gold was produced back in the 1930s, does not lie along the McKinnon resource. The McKinnon resource is a little different. As we say, it's this whitish schist with pyrite and quartz in it. The Shenango shaft, the best we can see, does not contain any of that. So we're looking at a different beast. So we're looking forward to getting our first drill hole underneath that, because there's been no drill testing of the Shenango shaft.
How would you comment on the resource potential of the district in terms of size?
I think it's wide open. I think there's very little modern work that's been done on this in this area, so I think it's wide open. I'm optimistic that with the proper amount of diligent work, that we can see a fair bit of growth in this deposit, and perhaps in some of the other prospects along strike in the belt itself.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thanks for the presentation, Eric and Ellie. So the project area you have is 60 kilometers. Can you tell us more about what lies in the other, targets in the other area along the strike zone?
Yeah. Did you have something to add?
No, it's okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if we go back to the map here, property map here, we have, so on our project itself, we have very little knowledge of what's here other than a geological environment. Two regional structures, the confluence of 2 regional structures, which tells me, a geologist, that there's something complicated happening there with all the different structural movement in this project. In addition, that it has the environment very similar to what occurs over at the Sugar Zone mine, which is a 2.5 million ounce deposit or mine. We have a number along the Bear Creek structure here. We have a number of gold and other base metal projects in the area. Nothing really big, but it's all things that have had showings. And right now, most of the claims that occur down in this area are held by prospectors. No major companies in the area there. We have back to the Hemlo story. So some of the things that you see at Hemlo, such as elevated, certain types of geochemistry or metals. One of the notable metals at Hemlo is molybdenum, and we do have elevated molybdenum that we're finding in some of our tests in the drill core, as well as there's a prospect here which hosted up to 5% molybdenum. So from that point of view, we are in the right sort of environment for that purpose. And then likewise down here on the west side of the shear zone down here, sorry, the east side, you have a number of base metal type of occurrences. So you don't have a lot of gold occurrences, but nobody's really explored from them. This area hasn't seen a lot of exploration in recent years. It would have seen a number of exploration programs by juniors and seniors alike back in the 1950s and 60s when base metals were being looked at, such as zinc, copper, and being looked at from that point of view. Very little actually looking at for gold at the time. Of course, with the exception of Falconbridge in the 1980s. So it's a newly emerging story. There's a lot of unknowns here because it's still very early days.
And just to give a little bit more perspective on the Hemlo comparison aspect, Eric, if you can highlight the resource there, the red line, that represents 3 kilometers, the resource right there. The surface trace is about 3 kilometers, and Hemlo is about 4 kilometers. And Hemlo is also about 1 kilometer deep, 1.5 kilometers, and we've only drilled down to 125 meters deep. So if we're looking at a comparison to Hemlo, which that's our working theory right now, there's a lot more space to go.
And so you're saying that current drilling has been to 125 meters depth? Yeah.
Right. There were a couple that were down to 700, I believe, 700
meters.
Just a couple, but for the most part, what the resource is based off of is 150 meters, 125 meters deep. So again, a pretty easy way to kind of test down and expand what we already know.
Any in the phase 1 or phase 2 program, are you planning to do any deep, several 100-meter holes?
So, well, probably not. I think that we're going to start off a little bit more cautiously. Like our first round of drilling has been focused in on some of the higher grade zones of the Falconbridge drilling. And part of the purpose of that was of course to confirm the Falconbridge drilling, but also to make sure we had a good handle on the actual location and space of this zone there, so that when we come back in summer, we'll be able to start going down deeper along those particular zones. So that's really what we'll be doing into summertime drilling, is we'll come back and we'll start trying to expand on those, and as well perhaps try to expand along strike a bit near the surface.
And does the mineralization appear to be continuous between the historic drilling and the current drilling?
Yes, best as we can tell, that I would say yes. Correct. Yep.
Gotcha.
Just to sort of backtrack on a question, we just looked into this. The resource actually was based off of gold at $14.50 an ounce, not $16.
Okay, my mistake. My forgetfulness.
No,
all right.
And then when, prior to the IPO, when you're doing due diligence, what type of work did you do, and how much money was spent on the property?
On the due diligence?
And prior, and I guess.
And prior, yes. I had been reviewing the data myself personally, for a while, but getting the team out there in the summer to really get a better handle on things was imperative to give us our first look at the geology there in and around the McKinnon Zone. And we actually raised just shy of $1 million, like $950,000 in 2020 before the IPO. And we probably spent, I would say, $700,000 to $750,000 on the program. But that also included doing more than just due diligence. That included some far, broader exploration work to expand on our knowledge a bit more beyond what we learned in the in the historical data. In addition, the airborne magnetic image that is on the final slide that Ellie was talking about was developed during that time, during November, which was a big survey, 15-kilometer long survey. That was really helpful. We'll be doing a lot more of that. We also, just as an aside, just completed a three grid test induced polarization survey a few weeks ago, because we're going to need something on the local level to help focus drill hole targeting, because we know that IP works to some degree there, because Falconbridge actually did an IP survey back in the 1980s over the resource. They didn't extend it much beyond the resource, but there is a confluence, a coincidence of chargeability and resistivity along the surface trace of the resource. So we feel it'll be a good targeting mechanism.
And what portion of the 60-kilometer strike zone was the IP survey completed on?
You mean the Falconbridge?
Or the one you guys just completed?
The one that we completed. So we completed, I'm just going to scroll down on the thing. So on this map here, we basically completed 4 lines out to the west here. We completed another 4 lines in the center over the deposit, and another 4 lines over on the east end of the deposit. And it's really a function of trying to see what modern IP looks like, because the Falconbridge IP, of course, is 40 years old, and then to hopefully use that IP to then help us targeting as we go forward.
And so I guess the programs you're doing now, a lot of it's confirmatory, checking the exploration model, doing some twinning of holes. What would make you guys feel like you've really confirmed that Hemlo style geological model in your mind? Like, what would you want to see?
I think, well, I think we're comfortable. We certainly are comfortable talking about it now, based on the rock type, the style of mineralization, this fine grain gold, fine grain pyrite, and this silicified white schist, this white sericite schist, highly deformed and distended and orphaned quartz veins and so forth in here. So it's kind of a disseminated style of mineralization. It's not a narrow high grade thing at this point in time. There are high grade, clearly there are high grade zones in there, just like there are at Hemlo, but we have this broader halo. And we're seeing geochemically, we are seeing in a very qualitative sense, a bit of vanadium and chromium anomalies, in addition to the molybdenum barium anomaly, all of which are anomalous at Hemlo. So we're getting more or less qualitative confirmation of further verification of that as well. Our trick is going to be trying to find these wide zones. Until we find the wider zones and or deeper.
And do you have targets in mind for the phase 2 drilling, or are you still working on them?
We do have targets. Yes, the answer is yes. We have targets. We won't have completed all our targets in this drill round before the spring thaw hits us and knocks us out for a little bit. So we'll pick that up in the summer, and based upon the drilling that we've done to date, I can see us getting back in and starting to drill deeper down some of these higher grade zones.
Thanks for that. Campbell?
Does mineralization appear to be continuous?
You're on mute.
Does mineralization appear to be continuous between historic and current drilling? And can you just comment on mineralization in general? And then I'll sort of add how similar and how different was this from your work over at Alexandria and all those ounces? So
so the cross section here, you can see from our first hole shows it. So even though we've kind of drawn this pink zone, which we're identifying as the McKinnon Zone here, it's not accurately placed. We think the most accurate thing on this diagram is our drill hole. This drill hole here coming down on the cross section, that's hole number 1. And we think that that's the most accurate thing we have. This drill hole up here, the shorter drill hole, is one of the Falcon Bridge drill holes that we thought we were trying to twin. And we can see that it needs to be moved a little bit relative to our hole to line up completely. We do think that we have a near vertical zone. And so we're fairly confident that we can easily test this zone with that further. So it's fairly continuous. We've confirmed and sort of verified the old Falcon Bridge data there, and we're pleased that we'll be able to start stepping out from there and learning more about it in the next round of drilling.
And then how similar and different is this project to your work at Alexandria?
The difference between this, there's a few differences. Geologically, we're at a higher grade of metamorphism. So we're at the gold deposit itself, whatever gold deposit, more gold we find, although we're still learning about the timing of its formation. Like I say, these are early days and we're seeing some surprises already, which is good. It's good to have surprises. It keeps us on our toes. So the grade of metamorphism means theoretically the gold deposit either formed at a deeper level in the Earth's crust, or was subjected to, maybe formed at higher levels in the Earth's crust and was subjected to burial in deeper levels in the Earth's crust. So that's one difference, and that's similar to Hemlo. In fact, that's a similarity to Hemlo. Hemlo is the same way. When you go to Val-d'Or or Timmins, places where Alexandria was involved with, these rocks and the which host the gold deposits there were not as deep level rocks. They did not be subjected to as much burial as this has. The similarity, well, the other difference here, probably the big difference, is that there's been less exploration and advanced exploration work on this property than would have been occurred on the Alexandria property, located as it was right next door to the Val-d'Or airport. So the Alexandria project is partly in the city limits of Val-d'Or. So you had a lot of people prospecting, a lot of companies drilling and doing a lot of other exploration work on this property, that property, prior to what we're seeing here. And it takes a lot more indirect, a lot of different methods to try and find new gold on a property like that. This one's bigger. This property is also bigger. This one is a 60-kilometer property, and although that was a big property in Val-d'Or, it was half the size. It was about 30 or 35 kilometers long. The similarities, they're both orogenic, what we geologists would call orogenic style gold deposits. And those occur all over the world, and they all kind of, to be found, they're hosted in very structurally complex areas, geological structures, that is fault zones, shear zones, and high things where rocks have been highly deformed.
You want us to roll up 2 slides?
Yep.
Yeah, fundamentally, one of the simplest similarities is greenstone-hosted gold deposits. As we pointed out, these large regional geologic trends here, you can see the southern limb. There's, as I said before, is the western extent of the Cadillac Water Lake Break, which goes all the way into the Val-d'Or gold camp. And so, we're on the northern limb of these large regional geologic trends, which are similar to the Val-d'Or gold camp ones.
Yeah, so it's along these structural zones that most of the gold deposits in Ontario, Quebec are formed. Yes, some are farther north, and they're just as humans venture farther north and continue to explore more of these further north, they're finding gold. This happens to be the 2 southernmost ones in the region.
Okay. You announced on the 25th of March, you staked some land around the Borden gold mine in Ontario as well. So can you tell us a little bit more about what's going on there?
Yeah, those are quite conceptual, just based on geophysical signature. In fact, based upon Ontario government geophysics, and located. One is located probably due west of Borden, and then one is to the northwest. And they're based on geophysical signatures. To the best of our knowledge, there's no, well, you can go to the government website and look to see if there's been any work done on these projects. And there has not been any that's been published on it or submitted to the government of Ontario for assessment purposes. So these are pretty much blue sky projects, which will send a couple of geologists out for a couple of weeks on sometime in the summer to just get a first look at, to see whether or not it has any sort of similarities to Borden style mineralization. But the geophysics is sort of similar and in a region. In fact, the northern one, the one north of Borden, is actually borders or is adjacent, butts up to Newmont Gold Corp claims, previously staked Newmont Gold Corp claims as well. So we're right along the geophysical strike of what's on there. And these are, I don't know that Newmont and or Gold Corp have said anything about them or whether they've done anything about them. They're certainly not active as they focus on some of their other activities there.
All right. Want to thank everyone for tuning in, and want to thank Eric and Ellie for coming on today, and want to wish you well with this really exciting project you have here and new venture for you. Everyone who's tuned in, please share your feedback when we cue you for it. A few lines would be really appreciated, and Eric and Ellie will see it in short order. And you can get a copy of this webinar for viewing pleasure in about an hour at amvestcapital.com/webinars, or rather /replays. So it'll be there. And with that, I'm going to pass it back to you two for a closing statement. And I always ask, why buy now? So that might cue you to talk about what we might expect in the next 6, 12, 18 months as a high drill story here. So.
Oh, you're passing it back to us? Sorry.
Yeah.
I thought you said,
why buy now?
Why buy now? Well, because we're so early days. We have a lot of plans. We have a lot of activities planned. We've already released some good results. We are hitting our target zone and planning on seeing more good results out in the future, near future. Share price is down. Good time to buy. And we can. The price is cheap right now. So we have a lot of plans, and we've got a diligent team out there ready to make this happen and keep plugging away on this project.
And you've got some cash. How much to spend?
We've got about $1.7 million in cash at this stage, and so that'll get us for a few more months anyway of serious activities.
Excellent. All right. Good day, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you, Campbell. Thank you, Stuart, and everybody else. Thanks for coming.